Great. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. And welcome to week three, the third and final installment, if you will, of our 21-day summer reset. Very exciting. I love what we're going to talk about, or I guess what I'm going to talk about tonight. I hope you enjoy it too. I'm going to keep my notes close by because otherwise I might geek out and derail and go off on tangents. I will try to stay, whoops, I will not try, I will stay focused because we do have some ground to cover. And if you have questions about anything that I share with you tonight, of course, email me and I will pull up references or notes or just guide you to a place where you can learn more about this fascinating topic. First of all, the major topic for tonight is Ojas. Now, if you remember, from the integrative and functional medicine approach, this summer reset, the 21-day reset, follows what's called the 4R approach, right? That's a remove, replace, reinoculate, and repair. It's all about the gut. And we can look at this from the Ayurvedic medicine perspective. We use what's called the 3R approach, which is regulate Agni, remove Ama, and then rebuild Ojas. So between the 4 and the 3, there is some overlap. And it's really fascinating the way these two methods, the East and the West, come together and converge and have these similarities. I love finding the similarities. So we first regulate Agni, then we remove the Ama, and then this week is all about rebuilding the Ojas. Ojas is this internal force that enables us to sustain change over time. And I want to review quickly, and then we'll get back to Ojas, but I want to review quickly the 4 types of Agni. We covered this in week 1, so I'm not going to spend a great deal of time. You can go back and listen to week 1's lecture, but we have the 4 types of Agni. That's your digestive fire. We've got the low digestive fire, high, variable, and then that gold standard of steady, regular, just that steady digestive fire. Now, everybody's created differently, right? We all have a different Ayurvedic DNA, if you will, a different combination of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, of earth, fire, water, air, and space. I mean, we all have the same ingredients in this magnificent cake that is our human body, mind, spirit, but we have these ingredients in different ratios from one another. So somebody might have a low digestive fire that might need just a little bit of cranking up, but overall, they're probably going to have, if they're a Kapha constitution, I should say, chances are they're going to be okay with 2 meals a day. Whereas a Pitta person, somebody with a really high, sharp, active digestive fire, we might need to cool them down a little bit, but overall, generally speaking, they're going to need those 3, maybe 4 meals a day because their thermogenesis, their metabolism is just so strong. So in other words, just because your digestion is low, I mean, we can tweak it. And you go back and listen to week 1, and you'll find the botanical boosts that will help to assist and regulate your digestive fire, whether it's low, high, or variable, and also those lifestyle interventions. We talked to some degree about time-based eating. Remember, the functional world calls it time-restricted eating. Okay, but I don't really like to use restriction and food in the same sentence, especially with women. So time-based eating, same thing. We're just not calling it restriction. So time-based eating, you can go back and review that. It's great stuff. I highly recommend it. And there would be a different time period for each individual doshic constitution that will probably work best for you. It's not a one size fits all thing, at least in my humble opinion. So then we discussed, or I want to go back. Then we discussed ama, right? So week 2 was all about ama and its relationship with gut dysbiosis. And remember this slide from last week, that if we have leaky gut, remember that is when ama, or this undigested, uncooked, these undigested protein particles escape from the gut lining, because remember these tight junctions in here, those are those purple, the on the graphic, the purple little long finger type cells that you see, the epithelial layer. These tight junctions have gotten too porous, and the tight junctions, remember, are like the crossing guards of the gut lining, and they're supposed to let things in and out, but on their terms. And when we have a compromised digestive system, and or we're eating foods that, or ingredients I should say, that the body doesn't recognize as food, this stuff doesn't get digested. Hello, processed foods. This stuff doesn't get digested, and if our gut lining has been compromised and our tight junctions are too porous or leaky, air quotes, then those undigested, unprocessed protein particles escape through the gut lining, and voila, they go cruising through the body, looking for trouble. And this is what we call, in conventional medicine, intestinal hyperpermeability, which is such a mouthful. So you can see why, in slang or layman's terms, we just say leaky gut. And it certainly paints a picture, if you will. Nobody has time for leaky gut. Nobody wants leaky gut. However, it is increasingly common here in the States. So tonight, in week 3, it's all about rebuilding Ojas. So this would be, from the integrative functional medicine perspective, this would be the week of reinoculation and repair. Ojas is considered the body's natural honey. It's according to the Ayurvedic texts, it's a honey or nectar-like substance that is secreted from the heart, and it permeates through the entire body. It's also, we're born with a certain amount of Ojas. We can increase it and we can deplete it. Ojas is the delicate essence, the final essence, produced from what we take in. Now, in the 21-day reset, we're talking predominantly about the foods that we take in. But remember, it's everything we take in. It's the mental perceptions that we take in, the visual, the audio. It's everything that we take in. The body transforms food or any of these substances into Ojas through digestion and metabolism. This is why we need a strong digestive fire, right? Robust Ojas acts as a shield of sorts. It wards off stress and disease that's brought into the body by external physical pathogens, and some would say even psychic pathogens. So the more Ojas we have, and I'm of the belief you can never have too much Ojas, the more Ojas we have, the more we are resistant to not only the pathogens like the flu, the cold, the common cold, etc., but also we're resistant to others' negativity, as our own spirit has a good, strong container. So signs of having strong Ojas or healthy Ojas shows up in an individual who is content and calm, with strong immunity, endurance, and stamina. The Ayurvedic texts refer to this individual as having a clear voice, clear skin, and eyes that radiate, that glow, if you will. Not the eyes, but the skin and the overall countenance of the person glows. Ojas is said to permeate or radiate through all parts of the body. So you don't just have good Ojas in one spot. It's not like, my eyes have good Ojas or my bones have good Ojas. You either have good Ojas or you don't, right? So when Ojas is deficient, then we're depleted and our body begins to degenerate. According to the text, strong fertility, healthy reproductive organs and tissues, and healthy hormone levels are contingent on strong ojas. This is dependent upon the confidence that our survival needs are assured. So think back to Five to Thrive and all of the emphasis on stress, balancing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. It's a dance between those two branches of the autonomic nervous system. We want to have strong resilience and a strong rebound ability. And when we have that, then that is indicative that our ojas is strengthening. Stress, remember, depletes our sex hormones. And again, thinking back to Five to Thrive, and we looked at the sex hormones not just through the Ayurvedic lens, but also we brought in just a tiny bit of TCM, the traditional Chinese medicine, which looks at sex hormones in this dualistic perspective of yin and yang. So the yin hormones are the progesterone. The yin is nourishing, it's building, it's cooling, and it's nurturing. The yang hormones are the fiery, the adrenaline, the cortisol hormones. We got to have them, but we want to keep them in check. So when stress depletes our yin hormones and overtaxes our adrenals, which are the glands that are responsible for the sex hormones after the ovaries clock out, right? Menopause and beyond. If our adrenals are depleted from, I don't know, 30 years of pushing things, pushing our life and our career pedal to the metal, then they're not going to be up to the task when the ovaries are finished and the adrenals need to step in and produce those hormones for us. So maintenance of our ojas requires healthy food, healthy boundaries, which has been a topic this past week, week 2, in our journaling prompts. Boundaries were the topic. A healthy conservation of prana and a healthy metabolism. So here we go, when we talk about metabolism, back to cultivating a balanced and strong digestive fire. We can deplete ojas. Remember, I said a few slides ago, according to Ayurveda, we're born with a certain amount of ojas naturally. We can build on that and we can deplete it. In our current culture that is so highly gadget addicted, if you will, and tech addicted, and addicted to stress and addicted to our careers, we live in a pretty depleting society right now. Emotions such as anger, grief, jealousy, and just an overall negative attitude can be depleting to ojas. Now, let me be clear. Anger is legit. Grief is legit. No problem, no argument with that. But it's when we allow the emotions to hijack us and run away with us, when the emotions run us rather than us running our emotions, that's when we start teetering on that edge of ojas depletion. Food, when it comes to eating too much or too little of specific foods, too much salty food, too much sweet food, that can be depleting to our ojas. Too little of specific food tastes can be depleting. Alcohol, this is very black and white. Alcohol is depleting. I'll just put it that way. I'm going to touch base on alcohol in just a few more minutes, but alcohol is depleting to ojas, absolutely, no question. Disrupting our circadian rhythms, staying up too late, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, depleting to ojas. Of course, injury, trauma, illness, definitely depleting. And absolutely, too much time in front of a screen is depleting to our ojas and our overall immune system, according to Ayurveda. So how do we rebuild or replenish our ojas? Adequate sleep, getting at least 7, if not 8 hours of sleep. That is standard for adults. Plenty of rest is crucial, but not too much, of course. Nature, spending time around water, in the woods, in the hills, in the mountains, just getting outside barefoot once a day, getting outside in the sunlight first thing in the morning, proper foods at the proper time in the proper amount. And of course, we are unique. I will reiterate that. And we all have different needs when it comes to calories, when it comes to macronutrients, etc. So proper food, proper amount, proper time. I believe that friendships replenish our ojas. So surrounding yourselves with individuals who edify you and uplift you. In fact, I listened to an interesting podcast this morning, The Hidden Brain. If anybody ever listens to that, it's a really fascinating podcast. I think he does a weekly show on NPR, but there's also the podcast. And I don't remember the title of today's episode that I heard, but I'll put a link to it on the Facebook page. And if I can remember, I'll put it in Friday's email as well. But anyway, it was about the aging brain. And one thing, there are a lot of takeaways, but one of the big takeaways for me was that our friendships, as we age, our friendship circle becomes smaller, but the emotional depth of those friendships is deeper. And I definitely related to that. So anyway, just a little aside. And of course, oil, 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 oil. All the oil in all the places is said to build our ojas. And so by that, when I say all the oil in all the places, I'm referring to both externally, doing your abhyanga, external oil, oiling your scalp, as well as internally, eating oil, getting at least 2 tablespoons of good high quality olive oil every day. Oil in your ears, oil in your nose, oil in all the other orifices in your body. So let's compare how ojas and the creation of more of it aligns with our gut. A brief review of your gut and the gut microbiome. On the outside, you see the large intestine, the ascending colon, transverse and descending colon, and the middle is the small intestine. But under the microscope, there are all the it's a little cartoon depiction of all the many gut bugs that live in our GI tract. Keep in mind that most of those gut bugs, most of our bacteria, our microbes, live in the large intestine. That means the colon. Now, your gut microbiome, remember, there's a gut hormone connection. So our gut microbiome regulates hormones and neurotransmitters. Our gut microbiome facilitates the absorption of nutrients, both our macros and our micros. The gut microbiome plays an essential role in the immune system. They're separated by a layer that is as thin as a strand of hair. So if I go back to this slide, and where the leaky gut, where the lining is, where the leaky gut is depicted, that's the outside of the GI tract, right, or the intestinal tract. And then this, where you see what looks like the little hairs, that depicts the inside. Think of it like a tube, right? So on the outside, this lining of your gut, right on the other side of that is your immune system, what's called the GALT, G-A-L-T, the gut-associated lymphatic tissue. Upwards of 70% of your immune system is found in your gut, and it's all along the outside of the gut lining. What separates what's going on inside of your gut, your gut GI tract, and the outside, the gut-associated lymphatic tissue, is a layer of cells as thin as a strand of hair. So we want to be very healthy and have a very resilient and strong gut lining. And then finally, the gut microbiome, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, contributes to the ongoing task of regulating estrogen levels in the body, which brings me briefly to your hormone health. So I haven't spent a great deal of time talking about hormones in this program, other than to hopefully make you aware that there is a gut hormone connection. This program, this particular 21-day program, emphasizes the gut microbiome. However, within this gut microbiome and gut health, you're going to find hormone health. So your body is brilliant. And I'm going to read something to you here in just a moment. Your body is absolutely brilliant. Um, think of your microbiome as an orchestra with with a woodwind section, a string section, brass, percussion, etc. Each section brings to it its own skill set and sound to the symphony to ensure a flawless performance. Now, within this symphonic community is your estrobolome. This is truly a thing. I had never heard of this before until just the last couple of years. Your estrobolome section. This is a group of bacteria bugs. This is a group in your microbiome that is dedicated solely to the work of regulating, modulating, and metabolizing your estrogen levels. That's how it gets the name estrobolome. Every woman on the planet will tell you that her hormone levels fluctuate on a monthly cycle. They also fluctuate weekly. They fluctuate daily. They fluctuate hourly. They fluctuate down to the minute. Your estrobolome is what keeps these dynamic fluctuations in harmony with the rest of the orchestra, with the rest of the symphony. Sometimes there's an allegro, sometimes there's an andante, sometimes there's a crescendo, but always in sync with the conductor and the other sections. I mean, our bodies are so brilliant. And what we are learning now in the, in this last 5-7 years and in the present moment about the gut microbiome just never ceases to blow my mind. So the estrobolome, this is where we want to find and maintain that Goldilocks level of balance. So as you've seen, a healthy gut microbiome is made up of a multitude of species, all in the right places, all in the right amounts, hopefully, right? So if we have too much of a bacteria, too much of either a good or a bad, right? It does, I mean, it matters, but it kind of doesn't matter because we can have an excess of the good guys just as we can have an excess of the bad guys. And having too many of the good guys doesn't necessarily make for a healthy environment. Think back to last week when I mentioned briefly, I spent just a few minutes talking about SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That's when there's an overgrowth of commensal bacteria in the large intestine, and they start populating the small intestine, which is absolutely where they do not belong. So we can have it's a balance, right? We definitely don't want too many of the bad guys for sure, but we also want to keep the good guys in balance and in check as well. When there's an overgrowth, this can result in circulating too much estrogen. Now, when there's low diversity or too little, then there aren't enough of the right types of bugs, of microbes microbes in your gut to metabolize the estrogen. So it's such a pas de deux, right? It is such a dance. So the triggers, of course, are the big six, which you are well aware of by now. But sugar absolutely alters the microbiome by favoring the growth of and feeding the unwanted, favoring the growth of and feeding the bad guys, the unwanted. Alcohol. I said I would talk about this coming up, and here it is. It is black and white. Alcohol can raise estrogen levels in both the short term and the long term. If you have a history of or are susceptible to any of the estrogen related cancers, there is absolutely no, and I repeat, no tolerance for alcohol in your diet. Done. Hard stop. That's it. Ultra processed foods and ultra processed foods. Now, lately I'm seeing this all over the internet and social media. UPF, standing for ultra processed foods. Just 3 days of eating ultra-processed foods has been linked to a detrimental impact on gut health. Now, get this, eating a diet high in ultra-processed foods for 2 weeks can reduce your microbial diversity by up to 40%. And remember, diversity is what it's all about. It is the final say in keeping our gut bugs happy, healthy, and balanced. Just 2 weeks of a high ultra processed food diet can reduce our diversity by up to 40%. That is significant. I mean, to me, that's as significant as a round of antibiotics. I mean, that's just my opinion. Environmental pollutants such as plastics, BPA, and those pesky forever chemicals, which are getting so much press right now. What is the remedy? The remedy is plant diversity. That's been the theme of the 21-day reset, is diversifying your plant intake, aiming for at least 30 different plants a week. If this is a new concept for you, and it's really not that hard to do, because I'm going to share with you in just a minute all of the different foods that qualify as a plant. If you really want to get crazy with this, you can aim for 30 different plants a day in your diet. Up level your plant fiber, reseed your gut, which is where reinoculation comes in. How do we do that? We eat foods like sauerkraut, tempeh, miso. We eat prebiotic foods, which consist of artichokes, leeks, asparagus, legumes, probiotics. Now, personally, I would love to see all of us getting all of our probiotic needs met by eating a good, well-balanced, well-rounded, diversified diet. That's not always practical, not always possible. There may be times when outside help is needed with regards to getting probiotics into the system. If you have been dealing with any form of gut dysbiosis, then one of the standard places to start with probiotics is with lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, about 10 billion CFUs of each of those, daily for a couple of months, and then reduce to a few days a week. Those are very easy to find over the counter in most every store these days, the lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Now, the world of probiotics is deep, it's vast, it's fascinating, it's complicated. There are certain strains of probiotics that do certain things within our bodies. Not all probiotics are necessary for all people, but that is beyond the scope of this 21-day reset. Lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are safe and good places to start. So with regards to enzymes, there might be a time and a place for outside help with enzymes as well. If we're having difficulty digesting lactose, for example, fructose, for example, carbohydrates, proteins, or fats. And again, that is something that often can be addressed without too much difficulty with over-the-counter enzymes, perhaps a prescription if necessary, but that's also a little beyond the scope of this, but just something to be aware of, that enzymes play an enormous role in our ability to digest. Finally, we've got to get dirty. I like to sign off my emails by saying, my monthly emails and weekly emails by saying, eat with joy, drink more water, and wash your hands, but not too often. Because yeah, cleanliness is important, but so is dirtiness. We've got to get dirty. It's great to live with pets if possible. Play in the dirt, get your hands dirty, get your feet dirty, and don't over sanitize. Don't over sanitize your house, your body, or your food. Now, I want to share with you an herbal gut infusion. This recipe comes to me from one of my teachers, Dr. Aviva Ram, who in addition to being a prolific author and writer, is a doctor, graduated from Yale, and she's also functional medicine, integrative nutrition, and who I studied with for 16 months during the pandemic. So there was one bright spot to the pandemic for me, was spending all that time with her. This is her recipe for an herbal, which she calls a gut healing infusion. And this is something that I freely give to my clients when they have been experiencing gut distress, dysbiosis, leaky gut, um, you know, acid reflux, hyperacidity, gastritis. This is the drink. So you are welcome to take a screenshot of this and keep this. These herbs, the licorice, marshmallow, calendula, and chamomile, are all easily obtainable online. Two of my favorite places are starwestbotanicals.com and mountainroseherbs.com. Both of those companies are they're US companies. They source their ingredients with very high ethics and sustainably. So anyway, you can get these items by the by the quarter pound, half pound. Keep them on hand, especially if you are prone to having gut disruption. And it's really a tasty beverage. And you can drink it slightly chilled, or you can drink it hot, but especially if there's hyperacidity, it feels good to have it a little bit chilled. But just remember, ice is not nice. We don't like ice. Okay, let's move into what we eat. This acronym of F goals, food goals, this comes from Dr. Will Bolsewicz. And Dr. Will, he's referred to as Dr. B. He's a celebrated gastroenterologist. He's an author of Fiber Fueled and now the Fiber Fueled Cookbook. And I think he's brilliant and has a way of getting the information and education of the gut microbiome to the masses, to people like me with not the hugest brain in the world, in a way that makes a lot of sense. And this is one of the ways he breaks down finding enough fiber and a diversity of fiber into our daily diets. So ideally, we get 2 or 3 foods in each of these categories every day. We'll start with fruits and ferments. I think this is a no-brainer. Studies indicate that women who ate just 2 servings of strawberries or 1 serving of blueberries a week, their brain behaved like it was 30 months younger. I mean, right now, blueberries are so magnificent, and the strawberries in Oklahoma are just off the charts. And this is just a serving of blueberries a week, and their brain behaved like it was 30 months younger. When wild blueberries, those are the small ones, when wild blueberries were given to kids, they saw almost an immediate improvement in cognitive performance. So you want to opt for the little ones, the smaller wild blueberries. They have higher levels of what we used to call antioxidants. Now we call it phytonutrients. I don't know why the change, but that's just the way nutrition is going. And then ferments. 2 to 4 ounces a day is really all you need. Sauerkraut is great. Pickled vegetables are great. Kombucha, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with kombucha. Not all of it is really high quality. If you're buying the stuff in the local grocery store, I would not recommend that. But if you can get a high quality kombucha from a farmer's market, then that's okay. But keep in mind, there's sugar in there, and there's some alcohol in there as well. So be mindful of that. You can have 2 ounces of sauerkraut a day on your salad or with your eggs, and delish. Greens and grains. Greens and grains. Greens. This is just get all the greens you can get. And with regards to grains, simply drop the refined grains, but let's opt for the natural grains in their purest form. Omega-3 super seeds. These are your seeds like chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds. Walnuts have a high amount of omega-3s. Firm tofu qualifies. Edamame also contains omega-3s to a lesser degree, but it's still in there. So those are some examples of where you can get your omega-3 fatty acids. Aromatics. Aromatics qualify. So what we're talking about are like garlic, onions, shallots, the allium vegetables, which is allium vegetables is like nutrition code for being jam packed with nutrients, flavonoids, and anti-cancer properties. So you've got that in garlic, you've got it in onions, you have it in shallots, and you have it in scallions and leeks even. Now, the stronger the smell, the better for your health. It indicates strong antibacterial, antifungal, antiparasitic, and antiviral properties with a stronger smell. Now, there's something that I learned in reading Dr. B's Fiber Fueled book, which I had never heard before, and I'm seeing it more and more frequently now, with regards to like garlic and onions, shallots, etc., is to chop, then stop. So this is simple to do. It had never been introduced to me. When you chop those allium veggies or those pungents, allow them to sit for 10 minutes before cooking. This allows the enzymatic activity to occur. And I always just chopped garlic and threw it immediately into the saute pan. But anyway, these days now, chop the garlic or chop the garlic and let it sit on the cutting board for about 10 minutes while I get everything else prepped. Fresh herbs fall into this category of aromatics. Herbs, they're really more than just a garnish. They're nutrient dense. They have multiple phytochemicals. They have big flavor. They're another score for plant diversity. And I find it especially rewarding when you grow your own, when I grow my own. Legumes, I think by now everybody knows I'm a huge fan of the legumes and the pulses. Now, saporophane, shrooms, and seaweed. Saporophane, these are your cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, and cabbage. There's an extraordinary list of medicinal properties, from cancer protection to regulating the immune system and combating bacterial and fungal infections. Broccoli sprouts seem to be the winner in terms of offering the most sulforaphane power. So if you're at your local farmer's market or a market that carries sprouts, keep an eye open for the broccoli sprouts. Grab them, a bag or a box of them, and put them on everything. Put them on your breakfast, put them on your salads, put them on your grains, on your pastas. Now, mushrooms and seaweed count. They count too. Mushrooms, ton of variety, and they contain prebiotics. Definitely want to acclimate our taste buds to mushrooms. I'm finding as I become more creative, curious, and inquisitive with foods, my taste buds and my tolerance, if you will, has expanded to include mushrooms. And I'm so grateful. I've hated mushrooms all my life, but I just, now I have a place for them in my palate, on my palate, and in my world. And I got to tell you, lion's mane mushrooms are amazing. Oyster mushrooms are amazing. They're meaty, they're dense. They're fantastic meat substitute, I'm finding. So I encourage you, if you don't already, to get creative with mushrooms. And I'm not talking about the nasty button mushrooms that come in a can that have been sitting on the shelf for 5 years. Seaweed, who knew? But seaweeds are a vegetable. Sea vegetables, kelp, wakame, nori, spirulina. They're high in prebiotic fibers that you won't find in any of the land-based plants. So when you have an opportunity to consume some seaweed, go for it. I did post a link in the Facebook page today to the Maine, like as in Maine, the state, Maine, Maine Seaweed Company. It's a small family-owned company. They They harvest the seaweed in a highly sustainable way. They have an excellent page of recipes on their website. I think it's just mainseaweed.com, but you can Google it and find it. And they've got a cookbook. They've got a lot of really useful information, and you can order seaweeds from the website. So I would also encourage you to become a bit more courageous in thinking outside of the plant box and looking into the water for our plants as well. Okay, that was a lot. Here we are building our account. Remember, we talked about Ojas. We show up in the world with a certain amount. And then from there, it's up to us. I mean, for the first many years of our lives, it's not really, right? We have other people making decisions on our behalf, for better or worse. But when we know better, as the late great Maya Angelou says, when we know better, we do better. Now that we know, we can deplete our Ojas bank account, or we can replenish and build our Ojas bank account. Now we know what to do. Take time each day to build and invest in your account, and you will begin to see profound differences regardless of your starting point. You do this with healthy foods, healthy fitness, and movement practices that are suited to your constitution and the time of year. We avoid Ojas vampires, what one of my teachers calls Ojas vampires. These are the people that just deplete you and suck you dry, and you know who they are. And if you can't avoid them completely because of whatever reason, then put some armor on, put some emotional, energetic, spiritual armor on before you have to be around these people for any period of time. And of course, set boundaries and stick by them. That might be the hardest part. Setting boundaries is one thing, but adhering to them is often where the challenge is. I encourage you to bring goodness into your life with healthy friendships. And actually, speaking of healthy friendships, I hope you are reaching out. That's one of the suggestions in your manual, which is to reach out. We talked about this a little bit in 5 to Thrive, reaching out and extending ourselves, sending a text, maybe an email. I love a handwritten card. Nothing beats getting a note in the mail that's written from someone and actually has a stamp on the envelope. So if you've got somebody in your world that you haven't communicated with in a while, I would challenge you. I would lay down the gauntlet and invite you to make a point to connect with them sometime this week. Ultimately, this was our motto as we finished up 5 to Thrive, and we'll finish up tonight's Tuesday talk with this as well. Ultimately, as we move forward, we want to create an environment in our kitchens, in our homes, and in our workplaces where the healthy choice is the easy choice, right? Where the healthy choice is the easy choice. All right. Yay. Well done, ladies. Beautiful. Thank you so, so much for logging on tonight. And those of you that are catching the replay, I hope you got it. I hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, then shout out. Please reach out to me, email, text, message me through social media. But here we are on the home stretch. All you have to do is drink your aloe tonic, take your kutki extract in the morning, and eat those plants. Diversify, diversify, diversify. Okay? All right. See you.